We're joined by Mary Curtis Ratcliffe. Hello, Mary Curtis.
Hello.
I would love to learn more about, or a little bit about your upbringing, how you looked at the world as a child, and then maybe your journey in the 60s and 70s as a young person coming up in that time.
Yeah, right. Well, I was born in Chicago, excuse me, in 1942. And I lived in the Midwest mostly, in Michigan, and then in Ohio for a while. And when I lived in Michigan, my grandfather had a house on Lake Michigan, and he also had some hunting property down by the Kalamazoo River, which goes into Lake Michigan. And the only understanding I had of Native Americans was that I learned the word Potawatomi, which I always thought was a marvelous word. And my mother used to go down on the point by the river and look for arrowheads, because there was a spit of land that went out to the river, and that was must have been an obvious place for a village. And there were arrowheads that she found in the soil and the sand. It was very sandy there. And I never knew that there were Native Americans that were still alive. I just heard the word Potawatomi and didn't think too much about it.
I'm curious, since the United States is a settler nation, I would like to ask this question. When the video freaks were documenting the movements, and Black Panther was one of them, were you thinking about the Native Americans? Were you trying to understand their points of view? Was there a consciousness about it that had arisen in the 60s or 70s?
Yes. When we came to California, to San Francisco, we started in the south and we came up north. That was a time that the Native Americans were occupying Alcatraz.
Can you go into that a bit more?
Alcatraz Island is a former prison in San Francisco Bay. It's an island with buildings and prison buildings, and the Native Americans decided that they wanted to occupy it.
It was no longer a prison?
No, it was empty, and so Dennis Banks and Russell Means, and I don't know, was Leonard there? I can't remember, and other leaders of the Native Americans and women and children went and occupied the island for a while. I think maybe about 6 months or something.
What were they trying to state?
Well, they were making a statement that this was their land. And we tried very hard to get on the island to document what was going on there. Perry was on the telephone. He was very good at negotiating. He was asked the question, "Who is funding you?" And he said CBS, and they said, "Forget it."
Why?
Because CBS was part of the establishment, and CBS was one of the places we were all rebelling against. So the fact that we were being funded by CBS got us in trouble a couple of times, and that was one of the times.
I mean, there are two sides to that, though, right? Because CBS was also a platform to get to the public, at large.
Right.
So if someone wants to share a message with the American public, then wouldn't an interview that is being broadcast on CBS be one of the ways to do it?
Perhaps, but the minute they heard CBS, they just said no. There was no arguing about it. And when actually that happened again, out in the first time it happened was when we were in Chicago. We were interviewing William Kunstler, who was the defense lawyer for the Chicago 7.
What are the Chicago 7?
They were the ones that were on trial with Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin and that whole group. He was the defense lawyer. And we did a really good interview with him that was about 20 minutes long, and and we thought we really scored. And then all of a sudden he also asked, where's your money coming from? And we said CBS, and he said, erase the tape. So Perry just stood there and erased the tape.
So tell us more about your journey in California then. So you were when you were filming in Alcatraz, you had not left the group yet.
No, I was still with the group. Yeah, right. Actually, there were 5 of us, and I was the only woman in that group. And we had a 3-camera system with 3 monitors and 3 cameras, each camera feeding into a different monitor, and then there would be somebody on the control board cutting and switching as a live performance. So what was your question?
I've been creating all sorts of detours for you. I was wondering if you could go back to, you were in Alcatraz and then you had tried to videotape them, and then you also told us that you left the group in the early 70s and you had moved to California. So maybe you could continue telling us about your journey after that.
Well, okay. I ran away from the group for a while, and in, I think 1971 was the first time, or it must have been 71. I get it, it's all kind of a blur in my mind. And then I came out here and I decided I wanted to stay, and so I went back to get my things, my clothes, my everything, and move out here. And I took a detour for about a year. And that detour was because I met a man named Cy Griffin. And Cy Griffin was my first husband, and he had become blood brothers with Leonard Crow Dog, who's a Lakota Sioux medicine man. He was the head medicine man for the American Indian movement. And Cy had gone to South Dakota before and had a ceremony and became blood brothers with him. And so he said, now I'm digressing. I'm going off into...
No, please do.
Okay.
Please do.
All right. Because I got to California after this. But anyway, let me go. So I was in New York. I met this man. He had 4 children. They were all great kids. And he said to me, even before this, I had actually gone to an illegal peyote ceremony in Cy Griffin's apartment on the Upper West Side in 89th Street, not knowing that this was the apartment of the man I was going to marry in the future. Leonard Crow Dog was presiding. It was totally illegal to give peyote to anybody who wasn't 1/4 Native American.